The 2026 NFL Draft is starting to come into shape, with many players looking like they're going to be first-round locks. So in today's video, I want to give you guys my updated, way too early 2026 NFL mock draft. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So as you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator, and I did go ahead and put in my own custom order for this draft. PFF has their own, and it was way outdated. For example, the Colts were way down at like 11. The Rams were also at like 12. You had teams like Baltimore who are super banged up, who are way up high. So I went ahead and adjusted it to better match what it looks like it might end up becoming. With that said, with the #1 overall pick, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock, and I'm going to go ahead and give them a pass rusher here in Ruben Bain Jr. You can make the argument he's been the best college player in the entire landscape of college football. A super dominant presence off the edge, well-built guy, can get after the quarterback, but is also damn good against the run. Do I think he's the next version of Myles Garrett? Probably not, but for a Titans team that badly needs help on the defensive line, I think it's a clear upgrade right there. I did consider some offensive pieces here, but I just feel like they have a ton of needs, and they just need to go best player available in one of their positions of need, and Ruben Bain is a perfect spot for them. #2, I have the New Orleans Saints, and a lot of people are going to go with quarterback, but because Spencer Rattler's playing well, I do believe this team is going to be quite patient with their current quarterback room. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and address another big positional need for them, and that's the interior of the defensive line, where I'm going to go ahead and take Peter Woods. Yes, I know there will be some people who say, well, they took Brian Bresee a few years ago, and he's shown life here and there, and he's also from Clemson. Yes, I get that, but for a team that is really struggling on the defensive side of things here, kind of like the Ruben Bain Jr. pick, I think you go best player available in one of your positional needs. Could they go quarterback? 1000%, but you just took Tyler Shock last year in the second round. Spencer Rattler is playing good enough, and they have so many other things they have to address that I would like to see them go with another position and start to rebuild and retool this roster before they take their long-term quarterback. Moving to #3, we have the New York Jets, and I'm going to go ahead and take our first quarterback off the board here. I like Fernando Mendoza. I like Dante Moore. I like Ty Simpson as well. But this is a team in the New York Jets that, in my opinion, will want to go a little bit risky here and go with the highest upside pick. Hence why I'm going to go ahead and take Lenora Sellers. Sellers is a very intriguing prospect. There's a lot to like about his game, but he has to hone in on his ability. You're going to see a lot of people compare him to Anthony Richardson, and I can somewhat see the resemblance there. But at the same time, Lenoris, in my opinion, is a better prospect than what Richardson was, at least coming out of college. Now, Richardson might have had maybe a slightly better ceiling, perhaps, but Lenoris is a better player today, and I do think his floor is a little bit higher than Richardson. Elite athlete, incredible arm. I think he's a solid decision maker, but he's still got a lot of work to be done. He eats a lot of sacks. Sometimes we'll throw a boneheaded throw here and there. There's some development that will need to be happening there, but the good news for him is that he can sit behind potentially a Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields in his rookie year, so he's not forced into action too early. But long term, I do think he would be their answer at quarterback. Next up at #4, I got the Carolina Panthers. The mission last year was to try and build around Bryce Young with their first-round pick and then address defense throughout. They added Ted McMillan, then they drafted back-to-back edge rushers, which we haven't quite seen the full outcome of how this will work out, but so far so good for their draft class. Regardless, though, this offense has not taken a step forward as they tried to work it with Xavier Legette. It did not work out. He's almost unplayable at this point. Yes, you got Jalen Coker, you got Ted McMillan. I think the mission for this team has to be, we have to make this Bryce Young situation work out. We have to put enough pieces around him to give him the ultimate chance. We've seen flashes of him working out. This is kind of his last year before we have to pay him long term or look at another solution at quarterback. So because of that, I do think you're going to see some desperation here from this Carolina Panthers team to directly address one of their bigger issues, which is finding more weapons for this young quarterback to have. And we got a guy in Jordan Tyson here who's playing absolutely out of his mind. Now, yes, you could take Caleb Downs. You could take a guy like a TJ Parker or another pass rusher or something on the defense. But I feel like this defense has gotten slightly better, whereas this offense has not taken that step forward. Even if Bryce does not work out and you have to go for a quarterback in 2027, you're going to have Ted McMillan on one side, Jordan Tyson on the other side, and then Jalen Coker. I'm going to go with Jordan Tyson here. I know I might get some flack for this, but I think he's an incredible receiver prospect who has wide receiver one potential. Play him opposite of Ted McMillan, and it's a Jamar Chase T. Higgins combination, but with even more size. So I'm going to go with Jordan Tyson here. I know it's back-to-back years of first-round receivers, but Legette has been a total bust, and you have to just get off that contract as soon as you can. Number 5, I got the New York Giants. I think they have to address their offensive line. Their defense is looking good. I could go somewhere in the secondary. Caleb Downs is definitely eyeing me down here, but I will just go ahead and try to fix up this interior offensive line. Now, I think Spencer Fano is the best offensive tackle on the board. However, I want to get somebody who I think has flexibility to move inside. So I'm going to go with Francis Mauigoa. I apologize if I say that name wrong. I do think he can stick inside to potentially play guard, but if you want him to, he could also be your long-term answer at right tackle. You have Andrew Thomas. You got a few other guys here and there like Jermaine Illuminor. I think you have to address the interior here, and I think Francis is a good plug-and-play starter. Number 6, we have the Cleveland Browns, and they're going to need a quarterback here because long-term, I don't think Shedeur, Dillon, nor Joe Flacco will be their long-term starter at the quarterback position. So I'm going to go with the guy who, in my opinion, is having a really nice resurgence, and that's going to be Dante Moore. I like Fernando Mendoza. I think Fernando is probably the better quarterback today, but the upside of Dante Moore and what he can become is very intriguing. Good arm, good frame, a little bit light, but maybe if he puts on a few more pounds. I loved his composure versus Penn State. He was accurate. He doesn't make bad decisions. He puts the ball exactly where it needs to be, and Oregon has proven to be a pretty good place to get quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel is now, for now at least, a starter. He's looked really good. Bo Nix obviously turned his career around in Oregon. I think Dante Moore could be that next guy up. There is the conversation that maybe he doesn't go pro and he stays another year with Oregon. That could happen, but if he does go pro, I think Cleveland would be wise to give him a shot. Number 7, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. This pick is super duper easy. I'm going to take Spencer Fano, plug and play starter on the offensive line. They have a lot of work that needs to get done there, especially on the interior and even on the tackle room as well. Cincinnati is on the board here, and unfortunately the 2 top tackles are off the board, and I think this team needs more interior help more so than tackle help. You obviously have Darius Mims and Orlando Brown as your 2 tackles. I think they're good enough for now, especially Mims long term, but I do think you need some help on the interior. Connor Lew is a very smart pick, and I know he's ranked at number 27, but I just think he's a very solid starting center that could be a plug and play guy. But I'm going to go with a bit of a higher upside and more of a projection here in Jennings Dunker. Very strong physical guy that just is an absolute mauler. Well-built guy too, 6'5", 315. I think he plug and play start him at guard because he does have a bit of smaller arms. So I'll put him here at Cincinnati to just basically lock in that interior to help your quarterback and Joe Burrow stay upright. Number 9, I had the Miami Dolphins. I got to stop the slide of Caleb Downs. There's a lot of pieces here that need to get worked around here in Miami, but adding a guy like a Caleb Downs next to a Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think gives you a bit of a strength in the safety room. He's the best player in a position that you need. I even think he can come down and play a bit more in the box. He's just an all-around great player that can do a lot of things for Miami. Houston up at number 10, and unfortunately the run of offensive linemen kind of hurts them here. So I'm going to take a bit of an upside swing here with Caden Proctor. Really rough game versus Florida State, but he's came back and has played pretty well since then. I think he has the size. I think he has the upside to play immediately. Hopefully long-term, Caden Proctor, Arianti Ursary, those guys could be your long-term stars. I will say Connor Lew also does make some sense here if you just want a guaranteed plug-and-play guy who can play up the middle that's going to be good. I'm going to go with Caden Proctor here, though. I like his upside. I think he's a great player that has a lot of potential to grow. Dallas Cowboys here at number 11. I'm going to take TJ Parker. 2024 has been a lot better of a year than 2025, but he still has the size, the speed, and all the little nuance. I don't think he's quite developed enough from last year to this year, which is where I think the Dallas Cowboys could come in and give him a nice spot to really mesh well with what they already have. You have Ezraku, you have Marshawn Nealon. I think those guys are depth pieces for the future, especially Ezraku as a pass rusher. Now you need that true alpha guy, and I do believe TJ Parker could be the one. Chicago here at number 12, and I'm going to go with Jeremiah Love. Now, admittedly speaking, I would like to go somewhere on the defense. Like linebacker is a bit of a need, but this feels just a little rich at 12. They also have a couple other needs. Right tackle is a position you could potentially look at. Corner, safety. If Caleb Downs was here, I'd take Caleb Downs, but I'm going to go ahead and take Jeremiah Love. DeAndre Swift is not the answer long-term at running back. Jeremiah Love is that instant impact guy, a freak athlete, can be used in the pass game. He is the Jameer-ish David Montgomery-ish guy for Ben Johnson to have. He's just an all-around superstar. 13, I have the New England Patriots, and there's a lot of pieces you could go here. You could go receiver. I don't really hate the idea of potentially going like a Denzel Boston. You could go somewhere like a safety or a linebacker, but I'm going to go with Keldrick Falk. I think he's got good size. He's a little bit bigger right now. I don't think this is exactly his weight at the moment, but he's about 6'6". I would say he's probably up to about 270, 275. Play off the edge, can play in the middle, just sort of gives you a body that can move all around your defensive line that I think can absolutely go. Can get after the quarterback, can play well against the run. This Patriots defense needs more pieces, and I think adding a guy like Keldrick Falk is just a plug-and-play starter. Moving over to number 14, I had the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of different ways I could go here. They addressed the interior of the defensive line big time this offseason, but I don't think either one of those guys have really fully panned out. I also maybe could go with an outside corner, especially if you believe that Jermon McCoy is that guy. It's a tough pickup here, but I think I'm going to go with Jermon McCoy. They just need another answer here in the secondary, especially with Harrison Smith potentially retiring. They got to move some pieces around, so I'm going to go with Jermon McCoy to fill in as one of those outside corners. He's coming off a torn ACL. We'll see if he can bounce back. If he plays like his 2024 self, he's going to be totally fine as an outside corner to play opposite of what they already have with Murphy, with Metellus, etc., etc. So McCoy will play out in the outside, and I think he'll be a plug-and-play starter for this team. Of course, Isaiah Rodgers, too. 15, I got the Arizona Cardinals. I feel like you have to go offensive line here. They haven't really addressed it enough. I mean, obviously, Paris Johnson Jr. has been good. I think you got a fine starting center. The interior could use some work, so I'm tempted to go with a Connor Lew, but I'm going to go with the future right tackle here in Isaiah World. He's been super solid, has just done his part. Very big dude, 6'8", 318, but he moves quite well. I think you put him out there at right tackle, you replace Jonah Williams, and you have Paris Johnson and Isaiah World as your two tackles of the future. All right, we have the LA Rams here at number 16 after they made the trade with the Atlanta Falcons. They need a quarterback, and I have a couple of different options here. Fernando Mendoza, John Mateer, Nussmeier, even Ty Simpson, maybe Sam Levitt. Arch probably won't come in. Drew Aller is interesting. He was one of my top quarterbacks to come out of the draft. Or coming into this year, but he just hasn't really worked out to the max yet. Maybe he turns it around. We'll keep an eye on him. I'm gonna go Fernando Mendoza. He gives me like a bit more of an aggressive version of Jared Goff, which obviously Goff had a lot of success. Sean McVay, Stafford probably won't be there long term. Maybe another year he could stay, which actually would work out quite nicely as Mendoza develops, continues to get better, and can learn from a savvy veteran like Matthew Stafford. I think Fernando Mendoza, I think he could play right away. Very smart quarterback. A good live arm. I wouldn't say he has an arm the caliber of Lenore Sellers or anything like that, but a good enough arm. Got some zip on it. He can move around, eats a couple sacks here and there, but I just think he's a smart quarterback, so I'll go with Fernando Mendoza there. 17, we took the quarterback Dante Moore in the round 1. I do think the Browns are in a situation here where they have to address their offensive line. They got to replace basically the whole unit within the next couple years. I think you have to address it now. Unfortunately, the tackles are all kind of off the board, but I'll go Connor Lew. I think he can play guard. I think he can play center. Just a reliable guy up the middle that you know what you're going to get from him. He can play well in any system, and I think within Cleveland, again, they have to start addressing multiple positions on the offensive line, starting in the interior with Connor Lew as your long-term center. I think it makes a ton of sense. All right, Baltimore's here at 18. They're one of the harder teams to actually place where they're going to be at because Lamar is going to miss probably 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks because of this hamstring injury. But when he returns, maybe the defense turns it around and they can go on a bit of a stretch here that puts them back down to about right here. So I put them at 18 for now, but we'll keep an eye on them. A lot of different ways I could go here, but I think I'm going to go with corner. Marlon Humphrey's been terrible for this team. You got Nate Wiggins on one side. I wouldn't mind seeing another answer here. Mansour Delaney is having an awesome season for LSU. I think he's got some versatility, good size, good frame. I think he has that true CB1 upside with Nate Wiggins also pairing alongside nicely with him. I could go edge rusher as well, but I'm a lot higher on Mansour Delaney than I am with the guy like Romello Heights or Cassius Howell or anybody like that. I think Mansour Delaney is a bigger contributor on multiple downs, so I'm going to go with Mansour Delaney here. Number 19, I got the Denver Broncos. A lot of different ways I could go here, but they don't really have a dynamic threat at the tight end room. I know they brought in Evan Ingram, but I haven't felt like I called his name too much. Kenyon Sadiq is one of these guys that people are just drooling out the mouth for. I like him. I think he's a great player. I think if you start talking about him within the top 12, I have some questions for you. I'm like, it's a bit of a reach here on Kenyon Sadiq, but at number 19, I feel more than okay taking him. It was a popular pick last year for the Denver Broncos to take either Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren. They, of course, took neither of them. I think they're both off the board by the time they picked. This year, I think they get their guy in Kenyon Sadiq or another tight end too. There's a couple of them that are pretty solid down the board here. All right, Washington at 20. I think there's a couple ways you could go here. You could go edge rusher, which they could use, but I think they need to address their secondary. Marshawn Lattimore isn't it, but you do have a couple young pieces there like Trey Amos and Mike Sanders still that you feel pretty solid about. I think you add to it. I would like to take AJ Harris as sort of a sticky man coverage guy, but at the same time, hasn't really played that well this year. Granted, the competition hasn't been the highest. So I'm going to go with Avion Terrell. A lot of experience. He's not the biggest guy, but he is a willing tackler. I'm a little bit concerned that you have Mike Sanders still, and then you also have Avion Terrell, who are very small guys. But Trey Amos does sort of make up for it, having a bit more size to him. And I don't know. I think you just get guys that can play good football. Avion Terrell can definitely do so. All right, 21, the Indianapolis Colts are on the board here. I think you have to add to your edge rushing room. You have Laiatu Latu, who's developing. You got a few other guys, but I want to see a bit more productivity here. I'm going to go with Cassius Howell. He's, in my opinion, the next best edge rusher once you get off of the TJ Parkers, the Keldrick Falks of the world. I think the next best one as of today is probably Cassius Howell. I also like Mateo Uiagalelei, but I'm going to go with Cassius Howell here. Elite pass rusher, already has multiple sacks in the year, and I think he's good enough against the run that I feel like the Colts would be having a nice duo of Laiatu Latu on one side and Cassius Howell both coming after the quarterback. I think that could significantly improve their pass rush. All right, 22, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock here. Rodgers is probably done after this year, so I think they have to get their guy. A lot of different options I could go with here. I definitely like Ty Simpson. And if Simpson continues to play at this level like he did versus Georgia, he's going to be a first-round pick. I don't want to project too hard, though. And I would like to see the Steelers team get a guy with a bit of swag, a guy with some newfound energy, a Baker Mayfield-like guy. And, well, if you're looking for that, look no further than John Mateer. Man, he is a fun football player to watch. Athletic, he moves well. Everything about this guy, it just makes you want to root for the dude. Good arm, can make almost every throw. A bit of a gunslinger who's not afraid to put it in tight windows, but that's something this Pittsburgh Steelers team hasn't had since Ben Roethlisberger. You took Kenny Pickett. It was a wasted pick. You know, you've tried with guys like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Now you're trying with Rodgers. You know, Rodgers is probably the best option they've had since Ben Roethlisberger, but he's not your long-term answer. I think John Mateer instantly steps in. Yes, he'll make some throws that make you scratch your head, but man, he's got a good arm. He's a solid athlete. There's a lot to like about him. And I think he would take this locker room of veterans and he would just be somebody that can just bring huge amounts of energy for this team. So I'm going to take John Mateer here. Although if you do take Ty Simpson, as of today, I don't necessarily disagree with you. All right, Seattle has a Tariq Woolen problem. He's probably going to be off the team, so I think you have to address it here. I'm going to go Colton Hood. He's done a really nice job in the absence of Jermon McCoy of stepping up and playing really good football. You see the numbers here. Only allowed 7 receptions for 56 yards. Has an INT. 76.3 man cover, 70.5 zone. Your defense is already one of the best out there. You have one hole with Woolen. I think you fix it right away with Colton Hood. And you got Hood and Witherspoon and all those safeties and all these other guys. You're feeling pretty good if you're Seattle on the defensive side of things. All right, San Francisco has to look to address the offensive line as soon as possible. I think there's a number of different ways you could go here. But I'm going to go with somebody here, and I might show a little bit of my Texas bias. I'm going to go with Trevor Goosby. Trevor Goosby, by most accounts, is probably not going to come into this year's draft, barring first-round projections, and I think it is totally possible. If he does go, I think he goes somewhere day 1 or day 2, and I think a team like San Francisco would love to get their hands on somebody like Goosby. Goosby is an athletic freak. His brother's one of the top prospects in basketball. I mean, he's a great player. Trevor Goosby is just an insane athlete for somebody of his size. I've seen him do like windmill dunks and things like that. Elite athlete, but he's also damn good as a pass protector. I think there's some things he has to work on. He's definitely not a finished product. And if Trent Williams does retire this year, I do worry a little bit about throwing Goosby out there to the dogs immediately. But as a long-term option, I think he has the upside to be a very, very good tackle prospect if things do develop properly. All right, 25, I got Tampa Bay. I'm going to go with a linebacker here, and I'm going to go with either CJ Allen or Arvell Reese. Obviously, Anthony Hill is a great player, but he hasn't had the 2025 season that has taken that huge step. He's been great. He's been really good, but he hasn't taken that big major step. Whereas a guy in CJ Allen who maybe lacks like big size like an Anthony Hill, but has just been really damn solid. 6'1", 235. They need to address linebacker pretty big. They also need to address edge rusher too, but I'm going to go with the guy in CJ Allen here to start at linebacker for this team long term. All right, LA took Fernando Mendoza with their first pick. Now I'm going to have them take a future offensive lineman. They have a couple questions on the offensive line, apologies. So a couple ways I could go here. I could go Austin Barber. He's been okay, really did struggle against the Miami game, which is a big sort of red flag. I could go Caleb Lomu as well. I could go Jake Slaughter up the middle, but I think they're feeling okay about the interior. I'll take Caleb Lomu. A bit of a projection there, but I do like what I've seen from him. He's got good size, 6'6", 308, more room to grow. This might be a bit of a reach here, but I think for a team like the LA Rams, they can go a bit more on the higher upside pick because they already have a couple options there, but long-term Lomu could be your left or right tackle. All right, the Chargers are on the clock here at number 27. They have to address the interior of your offensive line. Right now, injuries have piled up on the tackle room, but I do think you need to address the interior quite a bit. Jake Slaughter, a little bit of a reach here because of, the position he plays playing at center, but he's a good player. He's just a really sound player. I know this year hasn't particularly been like incredible or anything like that, but he's a good starter, and frankly, I don't really know what else I could take for this team. I could go Caleb Banks, but he's out for the season, so that's tough. I like the receivers here, but they've really shown progress with Quentin Johnston, McConkey, and Keenan, so I kind of have this buildup of receivers here that I really want to take off the board, but I don't know where they go. I know they don't go to LA right here with Quentin Johnston developing, so I'm going to go with the guy in Jake Slaughter here to start at center for this team. All right, Dallas will probably get a deal done with George Pickens, so I can't go with receiver either. If Pickens leaves, then I think Denzel Boston or Carnell Tate make a ton of sense. I don't think he goes anywhere though, and I think they need to address corner quite badly. If Eberflus stays, they're going to get probably more of a zone corner, which makes me think that AJ Harris may not be the greatest fit ever, but they need to address cornerback so desperately badly that I feel like I almost have to take him here. I could go with the Kamari Ramsey, who I'm a pretty big fan of, but I don't know, taking safety in round one just feels a bit rich for my liking. You have Deron Bland. I mean, you do have some potential options at corner with Savon Ravel and Kalen Carson. I mean, Diggs is not their long-term answer. I'm really tempted to go with the Kamari Ramsey here. I gotta be honest with you, I'm really tempted to go Kamari just because the corner situation isn't ideal. If Colton Hood was still available, I'd take him, but I'm going to go with Kamari Ramsey. I'm going to do it. Kamari Ramsey is going to be my pick here for the Dallas Cowboys. Their safeties are terrible. Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, they're not long-term options. Kamari Ramsey could be a long-term option for them. Although Caleb Banks, if he was healthy, probably would have been my pick here too, but the injury is kind of concerning. All right, 29, I got the Chiefs. I think they have to get a running back. I know that running back is not really the fun pick in the first round because everyone's like, oh, you can get them round two. Kansas City cannot afford to wait on running back. They just don't have an option right now. You have a lot of things going for you, and I would love to see maybe another edge rusher or some help on the defensive line, but I think running back's a huge need for this team. Of course, no Jeremiah Love here, but Jonah Coleman's having a really, really good season so far. I think he's making a case to be potentially the RB2, and I'm going to go with Jonah Coleman here, although Nick Singleton and some of these other guys are really solid too. I'm going to go with Jonah Coleman though. All right, the Lions are on the clock. I think they have to find more help off the edge opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. A good amount of options here. I think I'm going to go David Bailey. Really solid pass rushers, also really solid against the run. I think he's by far one of the best pass rushers of this draft class though. So I think you put him out there on obvious passing situations, throw him opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and then as he develops as a run defender, then he could be a bit more of that full down opposite guy to Hutchinson. So I'm gonna take David Bailey here. Bailey, by the way, could go a lot higher. He reminds me a bit of like the Mike Green conversation, where Green was just such a good pass rusher that you could ignore some of the other flaws he might have in terms of size. I think that might be the conversation here with Bailey, but Bailey actually has better size than a Mike Green, so I like David Bailey a lot. All right, Buffalo here at 31. Matt Milano's getting older and a bit more injury prone. I think you have to find your long-term answer at linebacker. I'm going to show my bias here to Texas. I'm going to go with Anthony Hill. Good athlete, well built. He's not as fast as a guy like maybe an Arvell Reese, but I think he's just a really solid player. So is Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles is actually a very fun player. When I say converted safety, one of these guys, one of these linebackers, I can't remember exactly who, but I'm gonna go with Anthony Hill here. I think you can put him off the edge. I think you can send him on blitz packages. I think he's solid enough in coverage. He's just a really good linebacker that has basically been a starter for Texas since his freshman year. So I'm gonna go with Anthony Hill. All right, lastly here, Philadelphia at 32. I think they can take a bit of a riskier pick here, and they need a corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, and I think AJ Harris fits the mold. This year has not been as good as last year, but this year, I mean, the competition was so bad, and I thought he played fine versus Oregon. I'll go AJ Harris here to round out the draft. But this is our updated first round 2026 NFL mock draft. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you agree with, what do you disagree with, and if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.